Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Keene No Spin. I'm Randy Filiault.
And I'm Dave Richards.
And we're back at it again. This is going to be about another half-hour show tonight, folks. You know, as we wind down summer.
Yeah, and it's the council's been off for the last couple of weeks, so there's no real new developments that way.
Absolutely. So we're going to kind of just squeeze in the updated notes here that have been going on, and then next week, as September comes rolling in, we're going to go back to our hour format. We're going to have guests on. And a lot more to talk about because we can start picking on council again. Right.
Well, next week all the committees come back, and I'm sure our agendas will be full because we haven't met in 3 weeks. So
absolutely,
there'll be plenty going
on. Once again, our sponsor is Nitro Fitness over at the center of Keene. So you're gonna get back into shape. See Joe over at Nitro Fitness and tell him we sent you. Well, Dave, college is back. Well, they're rolling back in.
Yep.
And just like in the past, like every year, a few of the freshmen come in, and that's right, a dozen of them got to meet the Keene Police Department last night, and a dozen of them were cited for things like open containers and underage drinking. And the police department's used to it. They're like, okay, here we go.
They're really more than used to it because they gear up for this.
Yes.
I mean, they plan the first week when the kids are back to create a real presence to let them know. Yeah, have your fun, but we're here if you go too far with it.
Yeah, so exactly. So the police will be very proactive, like every year. A couple of weeks, it settles in. I mean, the noise complaints are always going to be there on the nice summer evenings. It just is what it is.
Yeah. When
you get a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds.
Well, it's the price you pay for the economic driver of the college.
Right. And as we mentioned, Jay Kahn's the interim president now, so he'll be all over them.
He will.
And if you're a college student happen to watch our show, behave yourself. You don't want to be the one where you've been in college 2 days and mom and dad just get a phone call.
Right. And and out to Jay Kahn, please consider putting yourself in for permanently being the president of the college. Somebody who's from here, around here. It's the learning curve isn't there for Jay where it would be if somebody were to come in, from somewhere else.
So the freshmen have moved in, and the upperclassmen start moving in through the weekend.
Yep.
And avoid Winchester Street because it's going to be pretty chaotic, through the weekend.
Well, actually, my niece is going to college, starts next week, and my son's going to the middle school this year. So I've got a lot of upgrades in the Richards family schooling.
Yeah. I mean, all different levels. And in Keene State now, geez, what was it? Not too many years ago, it was 1,600 students, and now it's in the mid-fives.
Mid-fives, and it's always kind of funny. It's hard to get that number.
Yeah.
That number they don't want to share a lot, but 5,500 I guess is the latest one I read. But
yeah. So it's one thing that's happened over the years is we've talked about. There's always a shortage of apartments. That if you were a resident looking for an apartment, and I guess this year, from talking to landlords, there's a glut because so many new apartments were built.
Yep.
And if you look in the paper under apartments, there's like almost a full page of empty apartments.
Yeah, I actually just rented my apartment a few months ago. I have a small apartment in my house, and I guess we bought my house maybe 13 years ago, and we put it in the paper. We put it in the paper for a day. And we get 25 phone calls.
Yeah.
Now we put it in for week after week, and we get 3, 4. It's wildly different than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. So the housing situation has definitely changed, and the students now, because of the upgrades, the ones built over on Ralston streets, and there's a lot better selection for them to choose from now. Parents coming in looking at some of these apartments like, oh, really?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it was funny. Actually, I didn't. The girl I'm renting to is a professional, and really nice girl, and it was a real good fit. So I hope she stays for a long time. I typically haven't rented to college kids, not because I wouldn't, but just because where I am, I live in the house. So first of all, they don't want me there. They don't want, because loud noises won't be tolerated. And they come in and take a look at the place, and I say, well, I sleep right upstairs. So 10 o'clock, it's lights out around here, and then they just go away. They don't.
Yeah, it's like forget that.
We'll keep looking.
Yeah.
So I've never really had an issue. I've mostly had young professionals who are saving to buy a house, and it's worked very well for me.
Good. Good. So anyhow, welcome back to students. They as much as some people really cringe when college comes back, they are an economic engine in this city.
Yeah, and a massive one.
A massive one. 5,500 students, and then you're talking all the faculty. Yeah, I mean, there's negatives that come with it, but
There is.
you know, you talk to downtown businesses, and I mean, you know, even the big chain stores like a Walmart. Try to go in there this weekend.
Right. You know, they'll be buying their supplies and their books, and you
Yeah.
know, it's and food and everything else at Walmart now. So
Yep, and downtown's been packed, and yeah, there'll be some noisy negatives for a while, but like I said, you know, the police geared up for it, they're ready for it, and they'll nip it in the bud.
They really, it isn't, you know, gearing up may not be the best way to say that. It's a plan. It's a concerted effort to show the presence the first week college is here. They do this every year, just to let everybody know. Like I said, have fun, but don't go too far.
That's one thing I always liked about the bike patrols. And they, you know, the kids, hey, you know, they're down in the Blake streets, you know, the typical college areas, and yet they're feeling their oats, so walking with an open container. They don't hear that bicycle coming up behind them. You get a little tap on the shoulder.
Here's your ticket.
Yeah, here's your ticket. Here's my badge, and you know, call mom and dad, and you know, you've got a couple $100 fine to pay right now. That's not a good opening day.
Well, but it does. It sends the message. It sends the message. You know, don't think you're gonna be meandering around the streets and
exactly.
You know, in gangs and having fun, because that's not what you're going to be doing.
Nope, not at all. Study, get a degree. You'll need a job someday. Anyhow, so welcome back to Keene State. Like we said, avoid Winchester Street, because I came through it the other day when they were moving in. That was a mistake.
Yeah, you don't go there.
And other things going on, just in no particular order here. We see finally got our bicycle bridge, you know, over the highway, and I guess the grand opening for that's going to be September 15th.
Yep.
They're still doing a little bit of work out there. I don't know, just basically landscaping and things like that. But I guess they want to do it, you know, more formal rather than just opening up. And some people kind of griped about it. It's like, look, you know, we waited how many hundreds of years, whatever.
Right. This has been in the works. They've been raising money for well, at least 10 years.
Right.
Maybe actively and even more longer than that. So, you know, another couple of weeks isn't going to break anybody, and you know, we do want to make sure it's, you know, up to standard. Everything's good. The code guys make sure that it's you know, everything's put together the way it's supposed to be.
Another reason for another party. Yeah, they're gonna have a band. I guess they're gonna have a band out there and entertainment and speakers, and you know.
Well, and they should. You know, the next big debate with that will be naming it, which we did stick with the North Bridge name.
Let's just stick with North Bridge.
Well, I think we will for certainly another year, and then let everybody, you know, kind of calm down about that, and you know,
we call it the No Spin Bridge. Yeah,
there you go.
Works for me.
With Dave and Randy, right? A big sign on the side.
You could do one of our shows. Do one of our shows remotely up on the bridge sometime.
We could. We
There's
could do
an idea,
that.
Huh? Yeah, people driving by, looking up, and just driving off the road.
Yeah, probably. We don't want to distract, right?
Exactly. Let's see what else is going on. Let's see the bridge opening there. Let me cross that out and jump down to here. A week from tomorrow, music festival downtown already. It's going to be September 1st.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, it's not September. It's going to be September 1st. Yeah. We're that close, a week away.
And I was announcing that in June, and you were saying, why are you saying that so soon? And
here we are.
Just like that, we're
just
here.
Like that. And then the following week, down at DeLaunt Hopkins Airport, bringing back an air show.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's not the huge one that it used to be, but from looking at the aircraft that they're bringing in, it's going to be a very entertaining air show.
Yeah, I mean, and
it
brings awareness to the airport. There's food. You know, it should be a good time.
Yeah, vintage aircraft. You know, some large aircraft, and I guess you got some skydivers.
Yep.
So it sounds like a lot of fun. So you know, a couple weekends in a row coming up. You know, a lot of things to do in the area without having to drive 2 or 3 hours.
Absolutely.
And you know, at $4 a gallon, which is heading for, you know, stick around the area. What else is going on, Dave? Let me jump over to you. Like I said, no particular order today.
The county courthouse project's moving right along. Very complex deal with lots of players.
Yeah,
it's one of these municipal projects that is part municipal and part not, and it becomes very complex. So we had to wait for state approval through the executive committee and other things, and now that's.
But the long run, isn't it? Good news is the courthouse stays downtown. Because once again, we talk about economics.
Yeah.
You know, a courthouse downtown. There's a lot of people. They spend a lot of money in the downtown area.
Sure, it's all the lawyers, it's all the judges, it's all the clerks, it's the, you know, it does do a lot for the downtown, and you know, it's a major upgrade. And if you've ever been in the courthouse, you know, it reminds me a little of the firehouse, because it was built, you know, when was it built? I mean, for
about the same time in the old.
In the olden days, and really, it's long overdue. It's just going to be great when it's done. There, you know, an addition, the parking, it'll be a lot nicer.
And tying into that, we can jump back over to this. You probably heard that the, you know, it's funny. They say, well, the former Latches Theater is going to be razed. It is no longer the Latches Theater, and it hasn't been for a long time.
No.
It's 2 remaining brick walls, and that's it. There's no roof. It was a huge pigeon coop until a couple of hawks moved in. Now it's pigeon carcasses. And that's all it is.
That's a pigeon graveyard.
It is. I mean, that's all it is. You know, from the outside, it's just 2 brick walls.
You know, look, I appreciate what you know, people are saying about, you know, renovate, but there's nothing to renovate.
No, nothing at all. It's 2 walls.
You know, it's too bad that happened, but it did. And, you know, now it's time to do something different. Now, I got to say, making a parking lot doesn't seem to me, it seems to me like less than a valuable use of that area.
Yeah. Well, I guess,
you know,
from, you know, talking and listening to Roger Zerba, one of our county commissioners, what's going to happen here is the Latches Theater is county land.
Yes.
You know, it's on city property, but the county owns it. Now, we got the courthouse going in, which is taking away some parking up there. So basically what's going to happen where the Latches is, it's going to be parking spaces, but it's not going to be metered parking. It's basically going to be parking spaces for the courthouse employees that can no longer park at the courthouse because the spaces are gone.
Well, probably construction issues as well.
And, I mean, it does open up a spot where down the road, if the city and county and state want to get together and put a, you know, parking deck there to increase more parking, they can. But I know I read, you know, Representative Steve Lindsay, you know, making a comment on it that we need to renovate it. The reality of it is, if it was salvageable, an investor would have done it by now.
Yeah.
But you go in there and you look at it, all it is 2 dilapidated brick walls.
Yeah, there's not much left to work with there.
No.
I mean, and I'm big on renovating these old buildings. If you can do it, you know, I mean,
you pretty much have to do it before the roof caves in.
You know,
once that roof caves in, that really screws things up.
Well, once it's raining inside for 20 years, then it's, you know, there's not a lot you're going to do.
Yeah. I mean, basically that's what it is. Like we said, I mean, you know, it was for pigeons and it was a swimming pool because water would fill up inside. Yeah, it's not salvageable.
No, it isn't. And, you know, thankfully we have the Colonial that was renovated.
Yes,
so
we're very fortunate for that.
You know, so we do have a piece of history, you know, and I mean, I can remember my mother telling me stories about going to the Colonial where you know, she'd get like a dime. I think it was a dime, and her sister would go, one of her sisters, and they could get the tickets for the movie, and then they could each get a penny popcorn, and there was like a penny or 2 left over, and they had to bring that back. You know, they had to bring that back to my grandmother because 2 pennies in 1936 really mattered, you know. So, you know, it's nice to have that. And then, of course, me growing up, I remember the tickets were 50 cents to go in there, you know. I mean, and you know, it's just
some of us remember the old Scenic Theater,
which
used to be on the other side of the road. Same thing. They had all the horror movies and monster movies back then. So some of us have been around a little bit, and it used to be the Scenic Theater, the Latches Theater, and the Colonial Theater. But we are one of the few communities that managed, like the Colonial Theater, managed to actually renovate it back to its pristine condition. So.
And now it's used for, you know, everything. I mean, not just movies, but plays, entertainment. We went and saw, I've seen Garrison Keillor there, and I've seen the Chinese acrobats there.
See, Bill Cosby's coming in a month.
Yeah, so, I mean it's, you know, it is a draw, and it's, you know, you can't save everything as much as you'd like to, is what it comes down to.
So basically, I mean, we you know, some people saying, you know, geez, you know, save the Latches. Well, it can't be because that was gone years ago. But you know what you can do? You can keep saving the Colonial by attending shows occasionally. You know, I mean, it's a tough economy. Doesn't mean you go every weekend, but you know, if you can.
Well, I usually pick one a year. You know, I mean,
a good show.
A good show that we like once a year. And if you go get their program, you're going to find something in there you like. I mean, there's something for everybody. There's no question about it.
No, there really is. So, you know, that's one way to assure that, you know, the Colonial stays is attend the Colonial. Anyhow, you know, moving on through that, talking about county. Oh, by the way, I was listening to Roger Zerba, and as far as the funds for tearing it down, I guess there's federal funds available. So it's not city taxes that are going to tear it down. So you can at least take a breath there. Yeah. That it's not coming out of the city.
County has been spending a lot of money lately.
Yes.
They've been writing those checks.
Speaking about the county, of course, county affects us because Keene pays a good portion of the county budget.
27%.
There you go. The nursing home, about $4 million in debt. You know, and that building's in tough shape up in Westmoreland.
Yep.
The big problem there is it's our illustrious state of New Hampshire government up there, which, you know, we have a lot of comments for them. They're basically reneging on, you know, the same thing the feds have been reneging on. You know, there's Medicare funds, and basically they're finding funds coming in saying, you know what, they don't really need that, we'll take it. And that's what's happening.
Yeah.
The county's not getting the money from the state, and that old trickle-down effect is raising havoc on cities, towns, and county budgets as O'Brien and his cronies up there in New Hampshire continue to screw things up.
Well, it continued to dump these expenses on localities. I mean, if they're up there telling you they're cutting budgets, that's I like how the people say misstatements. It's a lie. Okay, that's a lie.
Exactly.
When they're up there saying we're cutting, they're not cutting. They're just taking those expenses that have to be paid for things like nursing homes, and they're putting it on local communities. I mean, that's what they're doing. They've cut us $1 million, and that's from our rooms and meals taxes that we generate here.
Exactly.
And it goes to Concord, and then they say, well, no, you can't have it back.
No,
I mean, don't kid yourself that they're saving any money. They're just making other people pay it.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is. They're, as you just mentioned, they're still pulling the rooms and meals tax out of Keene. They're still taking it,
right?
But they're not giving it back.
That's
our portion.
That's right, and just don't buy into what they're telling you. That's all. Don't we've cut all this from the budget. Yeah, you've made the city taxpayers pay more. That's what you've done instead of the state, revenue agency or whatever.
Yeah,
so
I hear that with O'Brien saying, and some of his representatives up there saying how the state has saved so much money. It's bull.
Yeah.
They've just forced it onto the cities and towns,
Yep.
and now it's more direct because now that percentage, instead of a portion of it coming from the state, once they cut it, now that 100% has to be made up by the community.
Right, and the other side, the thing that bothers me the most about the rooms and meals is, that's generated here. If you really want to dump the expenses on us, okay, well, let us keep the revenues that we generate here and to help offset it.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, if the state wants to play that game, communities that are proactive like Keene, let us keep our rooms and meals tax. You know what? The state, you don't want to fund us, don't fund us. We'll take care of ourselves. We'll go to a home rule, which they won't allow us to do. We can't raise our own funds.
Which is funny because they talk about local control and they talk about less government, but when we say we want to manage our own affairs, they say, oh no, we'll take that money.
Yeah, it means all it means is basically that's exactly what it is. We want to have more government, but we want the money. Do whatever you want, but we're taking your revenue. Because if somebody like Keene, who's very proactive, decided, we get to keep our rooms and meals. I mean, weekends like the Pumpkin Festival, the Music Festival, all these festivals that come in, the air show.
Could be paid for.
When all these people come in and spend in the hotels, the restaurants, everywhere, let us keep that money. We'll show you how to run a community.
Right, and we could offset the cost of these events, and we could not only it would be well beyond,
way beyond
what it costs to run them, and then you take that extra money and put it where you need it, or lower the property tax rate, or
absolutely,
there's maybe a split. You lower property taxes, but you improve the roads a little bit better, or you do upgrades in the city. I mean, you could, instead of sending it to Concord, where it. Yeah. And
then communities that do all the squawking about, send us money, but don't do anything in their own community.
Yeah.
I mean, not all local governments are innocent here, because a lot of them don't do anything. A lot of them just tell the state, send us money. Yeah. And really what happens is a proactive community like Keene, we send all of our rooms and meals tax up there, and it trickles down to some of the other communities that aren't making a big enough effort.
Right.
So you want to go to home rule, and the city of Keene will flourish.
Yeah, and there's no question about it.
And then what you really get is a very proactive city government.
Yes.
Because, Keene's very proactive anyhow, always has been. Before I was there, you're there. The great thing about city government in Keene, it always stays very proactive.
It does, and it's, how do we, there's just a lot of focus on how do we keep this community vibrant all the time. It's number one. How do we keep people coming in? How do we keep downtown nice? And the efforts have paid off. I mean, there's no question.
You want to see a downtown that really screwed up, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. Take a ride to Laconia if you haven't been there for a long time. And I'm not talking around just the lakes. Go to downtown Laconia. It's a ghost town. It's abandoned. There's just empty store spaces completely. And they did some renovation back in the 70s, and they put a lot of money in their downtown, but they didn't remain proactive.
Right.
And it has gone to crap.
Well,
it is terrible.
You have to stay vigilant.
And once it's gone, it's gone. Try bringing back a downtown. They've got a lot of work ahead of them.
Well, it takes, and you're right, if you wanted to save that situation now and bring that town back, now you're talking about decades, because it's going to take that long for people to get, used. It's like the street fair that we had there that didn't pan out as well. Well, it hasn't gone on in a dozen years, and they're all saying, "Well, we lost money; it wasn't a success." It takes years to build that up.
You got to tweak. You got to tweak it.
You got to see what you did, learn from it, do better.
Absolutely.
But then you got to run it every year.
Yeah.
Because people, it's 1 year. You know, the word's not out yet. You know, after 3, 4, 5 years of running, and I mean, look at the Pumpkin Fest. I mean, it didn't start out with 80,000 people downtown.
Yeah.
But after a while, it grew and people see it. So, you know, these things take a long time to get done.
You know, Dave, the amazing thing about Laconia is they've got the Lakes region. They've got everything around them going for them, and they still can't run their downtown. Where if you look at Keene, and it's kind of funny because you ride around Keene, you go on Chapman Road, you go around the hills around Keene, and you look down and you realize how completely isolated our little city is.
It is.
I mean, we just sit there in a little bowl,
right?
But we still manage to get tourism over here like crazy. Sit in our little bowl. No, you know, we don't have the ocean, we don't have the mountain, maybe we don't have Monadnock. But
we don't have the interstate. We don't have,
you know, what we have is proactive city government and community.
And community that cares.
Community that cares. And, you know, we do all these little events and bring people into town. Because even though the Pumpkin Festival, and Dave and I have been critical of certain aspects of it in the past, those people come back to Keene. It's not a one and done. You talk to a lot of these people now, they come back for our other events, or they come back for a quiet weekend.
Yeah, they, you know, you talk to Ted from Ted's Shoe. Yeah, I mean, he was on the show and he was saying how people come back to the Pumpkin Fest every year because they like his shoe store, so they'll go there every year and get new shoes.
Yeah, because repeat customers.
But over years that's developed.
Absolutely,
and that's what it takes.
Proactive.
Yes.
So, yeah, like I said, you know, you go to some of these other communities in New Hampshire. Laconia comes to mind. You know, Claremont. A lot of cities, Keene size. You know, bigger towns, small cities. They're in tough shape. So, you know, once something goes, like you mentioned, it's hard to bring it back.
That's the worst thing that can happen is if you deteriorate.
Absolutely. You know, speaking about events, Jaffrey, their fireworks festival, see how that got canceled because of the threat. You know, when I heard they canceled that, and I'm sure, you know, people knew a lot more about it than I did about that threat. My initial reaction was, geez, do you think that was an overreaction to cancel it? I mean, and of course, the law enforcement, they saw enough there where they figured they were going to play it
I think
safe.
the answer there is we're going to have to wait and see to see what kind of credible threat.
If somebody knows something more than we do. But then you talk about, well, geez, could somebody do this with a Pumpkin Fest? Well, threats can always be made.
Right.
But the thing about the Pumpkin Fest, the footprint's smaller. It's a controlled footprint, and I guess that's what they are saying over in Jaffrey. There really is no footprint to it.
Right.
It's just a vast fireworks display.
So and you know we take it with Pumpkin Fest. You know, I mean, you're not going to drive a car downtown. It's not going to happen. There's a lot of security measures, and I don't want to go into too many of them.
Right.
But there's things that we do to make sure that those things can't happen. I mean, you can always get some maniac like Aurora. You know, I mean that can happen anywhere though. But you know, if you can control the perimeters and control things like that, you're in a much safer place. And if Jaffrey felt they couldn't, like I said, we'll hear this will come out, and we'll hear what their rationale was. And I'm pretty sure that, well, in this day and age with what's going on, you know, what is safety's there's a phrase, but I can't think of it. You know? But you know, it's just better to be safe than sorry.
I guess the old word is safety first.
Yeah, I mean, if they really had a credible threat. You know, and they felt it could be pulled off without them being able to stop it. Yeah. Then they probably did what they thought was right.
In the Pumpkin Fest, I mean, you know, Chief Lamro, you know, who's in charge of the safety, you know, and then of course, obviously the police, state police. Right. It takes a lot of effort in this, and I think Jaffrey just found out that it's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
You know, because now, I mean, they're gonna have to tighten up because if they don't change, next year somebody can do the same thing.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And so a lot goes on the Pumpkin Fest, you know, behind the scenes.
Well, let's just hope they catch whoever this person was.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, I hope they've brought in, if they need to, I hope they brought in experts, you know, FBI people, stuff like that, who can figure things out where you wouldn't believe it could be, right?
Because that, you know, economically, that's huge for the Jaffrey area.
Yeah, it's really going to hurt them.
That's a big economic stimulus that they've lost for the year, and the money that was already put into it.
Yes.
You know, so you know, to them over in Jaffrey, you know, good luck with that because it only takes one wacko to really screw things up. You know, talking about the police, got a couple of things here going over the police and fire logs. As we like we say, kind of having a little bit of an abbreviated show here today. maybe I'm going to ask you this on the substation downtown. Any updates on that, or is that just kind of quietly? See that? Wasn't me.
I don't. I will for the next show.
Okay. I know it's coming along. I didn't know.
It was my understanding it should be up right about now, and
close.
We haven't had a council meeting, so I haven't chatted with the chief. Everybody's kind of was coasting.
Oh, working for a living, huh?
Yeah. So
making the money.
Yeah. So I will have an update on the next show.
The previous week, and this is going to be interesting to find out comparisons of the police logs from they've been running pretty steady as I've been reading the logs over the summer. Each week's virtually the same. Things go up, things go down, but one of the biggest things I noticed about reading over the previous week's police log was noise complaints up until this week. We're not counting this week yet. Last week's only 5 noise complaints in the city. So I think that kind of got squashed last night.
Yep.
So in disturbances were 22. In disturbances, usually it means it's a kind of a noise complaint with something else going on. Arguing what appears to be a fight. I mean, sometimes it's just a large group of people making too much noise at a party, and it really wasn't, anything rowdy. It was just, just a summer party. But basically, there was 22 disturbances that the police responded to, and it's pretty evened up. 7 were at homes and apartments. 8 were within the streets. Somebody might just be out on a hot summer night. 3 were at the hospital, which is pretty typical. The emergency room gets a couple of rowdies now and then. And they had 5 disturbances at businesses. And typically you're thinking, your bars. That's typically where you get your disturbances from, Not
always? Is that what we're going to hear? Not always.
The 5 of them in the past week, I'll read them off to you. 1 was at Panera Bread. There was rowdies at Panera Bread.
Coffee wasn't hot enough?
Probably that's what it was. And then 1 was at Applebee's, so probably their coffee wasn't hot enough. 1 was at Walgreens, 1 was at 7-Eleven, and 1 was at Cumberland Farms. So how's that for a unique diversity with disturbances at businesses? But I mean, it can be anything. I mean, it can be
the microwave's not working. I can't heat up my hamburger.
It can be somebody arguing over a gas bill. It can be somebody arguing over a pharmacy bill.
Or it can be 2 people who don't get along with each other landing at 7-Eleven at the same moment.
Yeah, they wound up there at the same time. So I found it interesting. It's pretty diverse. I'll just kind of give you a brief rundown of what happened over the past week. There was 8 arrests for intoxicated persons. And that's pretty typical too. Somebody they just found, and usually they put them in protective custody. It's not always an arrest. The person doesn't have a particular place to go.
Usually it doesn't usually wind up being an arrest until you make a problem out of it.
Exactly.
If you go quietly, they let you out the next morning. If you don't go quietly,
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're in that place, go quietly.
Yep.
All right, no trouble.
There's 5 assaults in Keene, which is a relatively low number. 5 domestic complaints. Once again, relatively low number for a hot summer week. They responded to 30 motor vehicle accidents.
That seems high.
That was up. I guess a lot of people are running into each other here.
Yeah, pay attention. It's a nice day, but pay attention.
And usually the motor vehicle accidents are on nicer days.
Yeah.
Because people drive more carefully when the weather's a little down.
Yeah.
Those warm summer days, you're just kind of looking around. And be careful now too. Speaking of that, on Winchester Street that when you're driving down it might be a crosswalk. But some of these college students coming in for the first time, they're going to step off that curb.
They are. I mean, the reconstruction down there did a lot of good.
It helped a lot.
Because it was just chaos before. But, yes, please be careful.
They still are going to step off that curb in front of you.
It's funny. I get angry with downtown with people not using the crosswalks. I'm going to say it. I'm not happy with you. There's one every 50 feet.
Yeah.
Okay? When you're driving downtown, you already have to stop every 50 feet or slow down and look in every crosswalk. Don't make drivers stop and look at every cubic inch of the whole road. Exactly. All right, you're never more than 50 feet away from a crosswalk, so use them because that's where they're going to see you.
And most local residents are pretty good at that.
Yes.
And once again, you get 5,000 out-of-towners in Keene as of this weekend, and most are going to be law-abiding, good kids just trying to get an education. And you're gonna get a few boneheads. And they're gonna step off that curb. And you know what? If you hit them, the person driving the car is going to be held at fault virtually every time. Yes. So, just have your foot on those brakes and be ready to stop because it's going to happen.
And you're going to be at fault, but you don't want that on your conscience either. So, everybody drive a little slower for the next couple weeks downtown.
Yeah. Just get used to it. It's going to change a little bit. Winchester Street's going to be chaos. It is what it is, And it's almost like when it first snows and you have to get your winter driving shoes back on again. It takes a while. Then finally you're back into it. Well, you know, college is back. And I know it's, you know, the summer, a little bit quiet for a couple months, and it is what it is. You know, they're back for the next 10 months, and, you know, just get used to it and drive accordingly.
Well, just avoid Winchester Street for the next week or two. You know,
there's pretty much cover most of it.
Then you'll, at least that part of the difficulties you won't have to deal with.
Exactly. You know, getting back on to the police log. Yeah, there's 30 motor vehicle accidents. There was 13 calls, which is up a little bit, where they assisted the fire department with an ambulance. And usually that means is you might have had a person that was a little bit rowdy, or that was the person that was getting brought in for an intoxicated, and they didn't want to go. So, you know, the fire department, of course, they don't carry weapons. You know, they'll call a police officer, say, you know, we need assistance in the ambulance here because, you know.
Yeah, hold them down so we can stop the bleeding.
Because we've got a bonehead here, only 12 calls to shoplifting and thefts, which seem to be pretty low. 15 the animal complaints. As the fall and winter comes on, those complaints are the typical barking dog in the backyard. As summer comes, and I was reading the addresses where these complaints came in from, it's basically dogs, animals locked in hot cars. It was actually people would be concerned about the animal that were calling the police. Because I was reading, a lot of these complaints were in parking lots. So, and the old...
Yeah, don't do that. What's wrong with you?
I mean, come on.
All right? You're going to kill the dog. Don't do that.
Absolutely. And suspicious person calls, you know, somebody like Dave running through your backyard at 1 in the morning. We had 21 calls for that. That will actually go up, too, because, you know, with 5,000 more people coming into Keene, they take shortcuts. You know, there's no doubt about it. They're going to cut through backyards. And that's what people are. All of a sudden, they look out their back window and they see somebody going through. That's a suspicious person call. So it's going to be interesting to watch the reports next week. And I'm going to keep this one to compare it. But once again, you know, most of the calls, they're not going to be major calls. You know, they'll get the kids sowing their wild oats away from home first time. 18-year-olds, I can do it on my own. You know.
Yeah, they'll catch up and the attitude will change. Down. Yeah, it will. It always does.
Let's see. And with the fire department calls, and I see we've actually stretched this beyond 30 minutes already. So hey, we did have a couple things to talk about.
We did. I still got a couple things on my list.
Yeah, so. We'll just keep babbling until they shut the cameras off. The fire department last week had 68 calls. That's pretty average, you know, about 10 a day. You know, 10 to 12 a day is typical for the fire department. Just one kitchen fire where somebody tried to burn the house down, but the fire department prevented them from doing that. So kudos to the boys on Vernon Street. 49 ambulance calls. 3 of those were just for the motor vehicle accidents. And we just reported how many motor vehicle accidents the police went to. So it shows most of them were just fender benders of just not paying attention. 4 hazmat calls. All of them were for gas leaks from cars, or you overflowed your, you know, the automatic shut off in the pump didn't shut off.
Yeah, don't bet on that.
Don't ever
stand there with it. Even if you put the automatic thing on, stand there with it.
Absolutely, because I'm telling you, they do not always shut off.
No, that and you know that gas when it comes pouring back out, it's going to wreck your car too. That eats your paint. You know, I mean, and then they got to come in, they got to clean it up. You don't need that.
Nope.
Keep an eye on it.
Exactly. And 6 good intent calls. And there was 6 false alarms, none malicious. So that was all good. And while I'm talking about fire department, Deputy Chief Goldsmith, who's retired from the Keene Fire Department, wrote a book. And I've got it right here because I'm going to show you. Actually, my wife surprised me and bought it for me just for a present.
Knowing you, it shouldn't have been that big a surprise.
Well, the ironic thing was she bought it for me on her birthday. How's that for almost a little guilt trip? I'm like, man.
Did you forget her birthday?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I do not. Our anniversary and birthday is within 3 days of each other. I do not forget that. Trust me. It's called A Demon Called Fire. And it's a history of the Keene Fire Department from 1745 to 2003.
Well, you should show them the front of the book.
I'm going to. 1745, that's older than I am, Dave. My God. There's the book. It's huge. It's heavy. It's putting a lot of weight on the table here. And to Steve Goldsmith, I've skimmed through it. It's a phenomenal book. There's 1,226 pages. And you're asking, you know, can I get this in the bookstore? And I'm telling you, if you're a fire department buff or just history of Keene. I know you've seen the book, The History of Upper Ashwillet, The History of Keene. This is more than just a book about the fire department. It goes in to the history and the government and politics and all of it. It is phenomenal reading. Like I said, I've skimmed through, read a couple chapters and stuff. Talks about the budget fight. More local times, it talks about when the fire department unionized and the politics over that. And great book. I believe it was $60, which for a book this size,
that's
Dave
not,
was just saying, what's that? It's a couple $100 book.
Yeah.
It's Steve's basically making enough just to pay his bills on it.
Yeah. It's not a. It's he did it out of a a love of the history of Keene.
Absolutely.
He didn't do it as a.
And go to City Hall, the city clerk's office, and because Steve tried to get it into bookstores, but they want a portion of the proceeds.
Right.
And he really didn't have a portion of the proceeds to give away because it cost him so much to put together. So if you want one, you can call Steve. He's listed in the book. I don't want to give his number on the air because I don't think that'd be appropriate. But you can go to the city clerk's office and just bring a check.
Yep.
No cash. They can't do it with cash. Bring a check. Just say you want the book called "A Demon Called Fire."
Yep.
And I actually talked to Steve, and we're going to try to get him on our show either next week or the week after to talk about it. He's pretty busy. Phenomenal reading, and it's one of these that you can sit down and just read 3 or 4 pages at a time, and really, really good reading. So, A Demon Called Fire, and it's at the city clerk's office. So, but Steve Goldsmith, phenomenal job in the book, Steve. Just great reading. Let me go back over to Dave since I've babbled incoherently here for about 20 minutes straight.
I don't have a whole lot, like as we've said repeatedly, no council, but a couple of things did happen, smaller things. The community kitchen requested no parking on Pleasant Street alongside of the building because it was really getting to be a problem. That was approved. Beaver Street, which isn't scheduled for reconstruction for a few years, I think it's 16, but I'm not sure, 2016. The neighbors came in, they had issues with the bridges, sidewalks, stuff like that. So the Public Works is going to go down there and try to do some nice things for them, try to do some upgrades and where they can, in lieu of the full reconstruction that we typically do when we do streets. So I guess we'll get back to you on that if it doesn't work out okay.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll hear from it. Right now on planning, we have the Surface Water Protection Overlay District, which is a lot to say, but basically it's an ordinance designed to protect what can get into streams and rivers.
You mentioned a little bit about that last week, which kind of shows that there's no city council meetings going on right now. You just kind of talk about it so you can get to the council meeting.
It's coming. It's coming to the joint committee, and it already has been there, and we had more questions really than answers. So. That's coming back around. I mean, I have a lot of questions. We had a typewritten page of we're not really sure where this is going, and we got to tighten it up if it does go anywhere. So I don't want to say too much till the next meeting. We're gonna have a lot more answers next time.
Yep.
So then I'll be able to address it, with some confidence.
And the great part about doing this show on Fridays now is we can do things after all the meetings.
Yes, we'll be letting you know what has occurred this week.
So for those of you that have been wondering where we are, all of a sudden you just, sometimes we repeat it like 2 in the morning. I actually talked to a lady the other day that said, I saw you on TV, and it was like at 2 or 3 in the morning, and because she had insomnia. And, I didn't dare to ask if our show put her right back to sleep or not.
Yeah, right. But, we're glad we could help.
Yeah, so we're throughout the schedule, but basically, Friday nights at 8 is when our main show runs.
Yeah, that's the prime time slot when you'll get all the facts of what's happened this week. Absolutely,
and what to expect over the weekend. And you're reading about New Hampshire news here. Oh, and by the way, we're on YouTube.
Yes, we're on YouTube.
Not only mentioning about the different times that we're on the air, which check your Cheshire Television, either on the web or in the newspaper. But anytime on YouTube, just go in there, punch in YouTube, Keene No Spin. There we are.
Watch away.
Yep. Just You can be out to the restaurant. If you're bored, just take out your phone, take out your smartphone, go right to YouTube, and watch us while you're
We'll entertain you.
Absolutely. We take things for granted sometimes, as we mentioned about being proactive over here in this part of the state. But the Sentinel did a good job about a week ago or two, 10 days ago or so, about the sheriff's race with Eli Rivera, Jack Zeller, and Earl Nelson running, and how they're just, of course, they've all worked together.
Yeah.
At some point or another, they have all worked together, and they're all running for sheriff. No barbs being thrown. They're basically just like, here's how I stand. I have heard a couple of them had their signs being stolen. That really stinks.
It always happens, though.
It's just
you've been there, I've been there.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It is expensive.
So if you think you need 100 signs, get 200 because in my case, I think I put out 50 once, and it was like a week, and they're virtually
Yeah.
All gone. I'd like to think I was a collector.
Yeah, well, my first time around was, I lost a bunch of them right out of the gate. And then, you live in your life.
It is what it is. You do take it personally, especially if you're running for the first time. It's like, what the heck?
Well,
then you get used to it.
City council only pays $2,000 a year. Signs aren't cheap. It's not like,
Yeah.
People have to dig into their own pockets for that. There's no, lobbyist, going after city councilors to help.
If somebody gets caught, it is theft.
Yeah, it is.
It's just not, ha-ha.
Right.
I mean, you get a hefty fine if you get caught stealing political signs. But yeah, to get back where I was trying to go here, kudos to the three of them running for sheriff. I don't know if you've read it, our neighbors here over in Hillsborough County, just our neighbors. Frank Szabo, he's a Republican running for sheriff over there. Clearly getting the bonehead of the week comment from us, right up there with our Speaker of their House. I mean, they're probably buddies. They have to be. He basically just said he would not rule out using deadly force on doctors who perform abortions. It's a sheriff.
Yeah.
And now he's trying to back off somewhat on it. It's like, you said it, it's recorded, it isn't going away.
Well,
you can deny all you want. What a bonehead.
It's amazing that that nowadays people do not realize that everything you say is on camera or on audio or on whatever. It can be on YouTube tomorrow, being watched 5,000 times. I mean, I'm glad he said that because it tells you who he is.
Exactly.
Okay, so thanks for saying that and let everybody know what a wingnut you really are.
Oh, clearly.
I mean, you're going to gun down doctors. Okay, yeah, don't vote for this guy.
I mean, if that's his cause, you think about that. If he's willing to say that publicly, what else is he thinking?
Right.
I've got the gun. It's kind of like, back in the Wild Wild West days, who was the sheriffs and the sheriff deputies? It was the guy that had the gun.
Guns, yeah.
It's almost like that he's thinking, well, if I'm the law enforcement, I have the gun, I can do what I want. So, Frank Szabo, Hillsborough County, Republican for sheriff, our bonehead of the week.
Yes.
Don't vote for him. What an idiot. But for the most part, and we stretched this along pretty good. We made it past our half hour that we thought we had news for. We're in pretty good shape here, but next week we'll be up and loaded. We're going to try to get guests on every week. And, summer's over. Oh, man.
Back to work.
Say that.
Back to work.
Summer's over. Labor Day is coming up, and, college is back. But football's back.
Football's back, yes.
Thank God, being a Red Sox fan.
So,
Thank God football's back.
We are going to have to wear our team colors December 16th, just so you know.
Yep,
right.
Yep. And
so we'll be out of uniform for 1 week on our show.
He's a San Fran fan, obviously, and I'm a local Patriots fan. So when they play each other, we're going to have some kind of bet. One of us is going to have to wear something on the air here if our team loses.
I'm prepared to make that bet right now.
I'm prepared to make a bet. I just don't know what garb of clothing that's going to be. We'll figure it out.
I'll buy you something. Don't worry.
I'm sure you would. Pink?
Pink, yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, anyhow, that's it for tonight. We'll see you next Friday, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. Everybody have a great week, and thanks for watching. Good night.
Be good.
Thank you, man.
Ready?